Go.
Hi, I'm here with an old friend of mine, Jeff, and in this crazy 2020 time, people have been connecting via social media, and it's been pretty cool because we just realized that sometimes you need to get to know the people you know.
Yeah.
You know people for a long time, and you're like, I know this person, and you're connected, but then when you start talking, you're like, how well do I really know this person? Like, who
Mhm.
is this person? I've known Jeff for what, maybe, wow, like 30 years?
Yeah. Yeah. It has to be. Like, I think I met you in 86. I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely was the 80s.
It was,
Definitely. Right? Long, 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 long time ago. And we met over music, which is a big passion for both of us.
Mhm.
However, Jeff took it places that I didn't.
Right.
So my first thing is, since we're getting to know who we know, is as I put my camera. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Was born and raised in Brooklyn. My name is Jeff Jeudy. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. Um, I'm a musician, songwriter, producer. I'm of Haitian descent, um, born here, and I work for a company called Jingle, and we do production music for TV and commercials.
And where can we hear this production music?
If you tune into, if you watch Real Housewives, or if you watch American Pickers, if you watch The Voice, you can hear the music that, I mean, I work along with a few other producers, but if you listen to those shows, you can hear the underscore under the dialogue. That's the stuff that we do. That's the music that we
You
do.
actually you actually play the music and produce it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, drums, keyboards, piano. So any type of music that you hear on the show, other than the main theme, which is it depends on the show. But if you hear the underscore under the dialogue, that's us.
So how did you end up there? Did you go to school for that, or did you just how did that happen?
No, this was definitely a blessing from above. Thank you. No, this was definitely a blessing. I've been um, a musician all my life. Well, since I was 15 years old, and um, I've just been in many different bands. I didn't go to school for this. I actually went to school for music and art, but for drawing, for art, painting, for fine art. But I always kept music, in my life. Writing a little song for like whatever girl I had a crush on at the time, or just writing like hip hop, you know, raps, rhymes. I had an MC name. My name was um, J Touch.
Was it J Touch?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
so I met Jeff because a mutual friend of ours, John, they had a band and they wanted a female singer, and I wanted to sing. I'm no singer. And we actually used to jam in whose basement was that?
It was friend of an old friend of ours who passed away not too long ago. Rest in peace. His name was Roosevelt.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was at his mom's house. In his bedroom, he had a setup. He had the first at home setup I've ever seen in my life, and this was like 80. I want to say this was 1986, 87. We've never seen anything like this before. There was a keyboard. There was a Tascam cassette, multi-track recorder that he would, bounce tracks in order to get, the multi-track thing. And he had a little microphone, and that's where we recorded our first songs, first few
Was
songs.
that the first song she's got? So I sang like the hook on the song.
That's
We
right.
got she's got it all. She's got it all.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I remember the entire song.
You remember the entire? I just remember my hook. I know you and
Yeah,
John had.
I don't remember the verses, but
Yeah, you remember the
for
song.
fun, I think I'm gonna try and recreate it at some point. Just to
So you were saying you were always into fine arts, you were into music, but how did you end up doing what you do now?
okay. In 2009, I joined a band called I Love Monsters. It was me and three other guys.
Yeah. I
Those,
remember because you had like you had a Facebook page, didn't you? I remember the
yeah,
I Love Monsters.
it's still up. It's still up. Every once in a while, one of us will post on there because it's strange. Like once every couple of weeks, it'll say, you know, you've got like 5 new likes, like 10 new likes. Our music is out there, and we recently put it up on Spotify, so people can
Wow.
check it out right now if they want to. Just search "I Love Monsters" on Spotify, and you'll see our entire catalog. It's up there now.
Cool.
But I joined the group in 2009, and we just started playing shows regularly around New York, Boston, New Jersey, and that by 2010, 2011, we started getting a little bit of traction. You know, playing with still locally, playing with some bigger bands. And one of the guys in the group worked for MTV as a segment producer. He also did some episodes of like 16 and Pregnant, I think that was the name of the show.
Oh yeah, Pregnant 16.
Remember that show? And one of his editors ended up being the founder of a co-founder of the company that I work for now. So he showed up to one of the shows that we played in New York, and I met him, and we spoke for maybe 10 seconds. He's like, "You guys sound great. You know, no, take care. Good to meet you." And then like 6 months later, I was out of work. 6 months later, I was actually I was volunteering for the GMHC because they were doing the AIDS walk, and one of the other guys in the group actually works for them. And at the time he worked for them, and he said, "Hey, do you want to, you know, earn some cash, like putting up flyers around the city?" I was like, "No problem, bet. You know, get some fresh air, you know, walk around." And then I got an email while I was on the street. I got an email from Jared, which is the founder of the company. It says, "Do you want to come in for a few days and just do some what do they call it? Just some, you know, just some data entry." I was like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." I never left. I never left.
I thought it was a temporary and you just stayed.
Yeah, I found it like at the end of the week. I did such a great job. I showed up extra early, stayed late, and by the end of the week, they asked me to come back the following week. And it was just more data entry for like 3 or 4 weeks until Jared pulled me aside and said, "Dude, I want you to go home and like create some songs that sound like they would be for like this show. You know, bring them in on Monday." I had 2 days. I had to cobble together all the software and like make up some songs. They were all 30 seconds each, but it was basically an audition. And, you know, I eventually got hired.
Nice. And how long have you been with them?
11 years.
Why is it so funny? 11 years.
Yeah, wait, no, not 11. No, yeah, 11 years, yeah. Because I started working there in, no, I'm wrong. It wasn't 11 years. It's 9 years. 9 years.
9?
Yeah.
And what did you do before that?
Before that, I was freelancing graphic design. And before that, I was working with HSBC Investment Bank in Jersey City.
So you have regular jobs?
Yeah, I had a regular job.
Regular job.
Typical city, you know. I mean, that was, I look at the first half of my work life as just, you know, that kind of corporate, you know, shirt, tie kind of deal. And this is the second part of my life.
The second phase of your life.
But I'm grateful because I learned a lot. And I was able to apply some things to the new job.
Nice. Very nice. So you're a musician, and of course, the obvious question would be, what artist would you say influenced you the most?
The most. Usually when I answer this stuff, like later on in the day, I said, "I should have said this."
I was going to see the questions beforehand, but I wanted it to be very free-flowing, and I didn't want them to be contrived.
That's fair. I have a funny story. Okay, so
Do tell.
I have, okay, so there's many different answers based on the period of my life. And so I will start off. So this is my 6-year-old self answering this question.
Okay.
The most influential artist, this is me talking as a 6-year-old. The most influential artist to me is this.
Yes. Okay.
It's probably backwards, but they're the reason that I picked up a guitar, and it was a cheap, like $20 guitar that my mom bought me, and I would play along with the records. And as I got older, I listened to more music and more different types of bands. But by the time I was 12 and 13, that's when hip hop was really starting to go mainstream. And then my attention switched to that. Heading into, and I think around my late teens is when I met you. And then that's when I started dabbling into songwriting, like raps, just really trying to dive in and to see how far I could go with it. I would say around that time that I met you, the next influential artist,
Of course.
right, Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't so much for the reason that I love him now, but back then it was just his sound was just so unique, and it was interesting, and it took you to another world. And it was his B-sides that really made me a fan.
Yeah.
It was the B-sides, and then later on I caught up to the regular catalog. You know, I mean, I knew all the hits, but I'm saying like I got the records and yeah. So that's my late teens self.
Okay.
Right now, I would say I'm inspired by a lot of different people. For a while, I was really impressed by anyone who could create music on their own, like playing all the instruments, like have the vision and see it from beginning to end on their own. I kind of let go of that a little bit because there was a little bit of an ego thing that went along with it. But I was really impressed with that idea. And
you can do that.
Yes, right. I mean, it served me well because that's basically what I do now. But there's so much that can be said for collaborating with somebody, you know, coming up with something in a room with someone else. That there's a lot of rewarding things about that. So, sorry for the long-winded answer. So there's
no, it's awesome because that's the whole purpose of this, right? It's really good. So we've been jamming and we've been working on Raspberry Beret, and it's been really cool because for as many years as I've been trying to learn how to play guitar, I never got past a certain level of that playing. Mm-hmm. And during the whole Corona thing being locked down, it's like I'm so glad I have my guitar with me where I am. I try to take it with me everywhere I go so I can be like you guys and play all the time. Mm-hmm. But I really appreciate the fact that we've been having these jam sessions every week, and it's so cool. And I picked Raspberry Beret because it's the only Prince song that I can really play. Yeah. The sound was simple enough to simplify. But in our exploration of that song has been so profound, right? The chords seem so simple, and then you start talking about the lyricism and then the way he'll play the same chord differently to the song. You think it's a different chord, and it's just, I guess as a musician, you have a different ear than maybe a lay person who doesn't play an instrument.
But then, you know, that's a good point. Yes, to an extent, because there are other people who also say that they can see colors when they hear music. It's called synesthesia. I don't do that. I can't do that. It does something else to me, but I don't see colors. I feel things. I feel.
I wonder. That's interesting that you say you feel things, because I think that might have been what was lacking in my playing. But playing with you and exploring it, and I guess having your balance and energy was kind of helping me feel the music more. And I think that probably what offers to the expression. How many instruments do you play?
I play 3. I play guitar, acoustic and electric, right? I play bass, and I play keyboards, recorded keyboards. Now, what I mean by that is that I record keyboards to sound like I can play live. In other words, I play everything by ear, and so I record the left hand first, and I record the right hand first. I mean second. So then it sounds like someone playing.
Why do you do that? Why do you play two separate hands separately?
Because I've never been taught how to play piano, but I know how to achieve what I'm hearing in my head. Right?
So you know the notes and you know to start from C and go up or down.
I just know where to go. I just don't know that that I'm actually depending on theory to get there. Which, I've heard people say that, without that, you're less hindered and you're able to explore more. But there's something to be said for theory, and there's some things that I still want to know. But yeah, I don't necessarily rely on theory, at least not right now.
But can you read music at all?
No.
I usually don't read music.
I can call out notes. I can call out certain chords. I'm still expanding my vocabulary, and that's just from having been collaborating with people, consistently for the last 5-6 years, I want to say, where that stuff just rubs off on you. But I have yet to actually sit down and
So you're self-taught?
Self-taught.
Oh, very cool.
Self-taught, and then picking things up, as far as recording stuff, picking things up from my colleagues and stuff.
Okay. So, like, as a Haitian boy in Brooklyn listening to Kiss, how did that happen?
Okay, another family member at this point, near and dear to me, who is also no longer with us. My cousin Eve, Yves. My cousin Eve was like the older brother I didn't have. So I remember my family going to my cousin, my uncle's house, and I remember going to Eve's room and seeing Kiss posters all over the wall, right? And I had already heard the music, but I couldn't put the face to the music yet. And it was just like one of my favorite places to hang out. Whenever we went there, I just loved being in his room, looking at the magazines. And I remember my mom surprising me for my 6th birthday and bringing home a copy of, this was like the first.
Nice. And which album is that?
It's called Dress to Kill.
Okay.
And this is them on the corner of 7th Avenue and 28th Street. Wow. I got all kind of Kiss tribute, but anyway, we're not talking about them. We're talking about me. So, my mom surprised me with that, and then I just basically dove in. I would play the records. My older sister got to know the songs with me, and we would have fun. Just running around the house, like put makeup on our faces. Yeah, so it was a very unique moment in my childhood.
Yes, that's really interesting. So, what would you say is your favorite instrument to play?
Guitar. I'm the most comfortable reaching for that. I can immediately connect with that.
So Kiss is your favorite band. You have influenced our trends and other artists. So, if you had the opportunity to record with the person, who would you really want? What artist would you really want to play with or collaborate with and record with? Dead or alive?
Oh, it's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, this guy is not dead, but he's definitely not active. His name is Lewis Taylor. He's from. Okay, wait. Pause. Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
Jimi Hendrix. I would have loved to I would love to sit down and not necessarily talk to him about guitar, because I think there's magic there that can't rub off, no matter what you do. But I would love to sit and talk to him at Electric Lady Studios
Mm.
on 8th Street in the Village, and just talk to him about, what his vision would be for the future of the studio, straight from his mouth. You know, I would love to talk to him. But there is another artist who is alive, but he's retired. His name is Lewis Taylor, and he's part of that group of people who can record things on his own. But he has like he hits me here in a way that, like, I don't necessarily want to play what he plays. Like, I just become a music listener. Like, I'm not listening to him as a musician anymore. I'm just like, yeah, he's just, yeah.
And what type of music does he play?
It's okay. It's he's English. He's British. Some of it is soul. Some of it is prog rock. And he was able to create music that was like a mixture of the two. So a lot of it is a lot of it sounds like like late Marvin Gaye meets Captain Beefheart or Yes. So it's a very unique sound, but it's also very accessible. If you look him up on YouTube, some of the stuff is still up. Lewis Taylor. He's still up there.
That's very cool, very cool. So, I mean, would it be safe to say that heavy metal is your favorite genre?
No. I do listen to the thing with Kiss is that they've been around for so long that their sound changed with the times. But they were not necessarily, the only time that they were trendsetters really was at the beginning, but they basically kept in step with what was changing. And that's how they were able to stay alive for like 45, 50. But they've had a pop period, pop for them. They've had a very heavy metal period, and they had a hard rock period, and they've had a disco period. So, but outside of them, I would say my interest in heavy metal is very, very, very small.
Really? That's interesting.
But the next, rock band that I like besides him was Cheap Trick. But then after that, it's like R&B, hip hop.
Yeah. Do you think because of the variety is why you like it, or what is it about Kiss? Is it the musicology about it, the lyricism, the whole look?
It's an interesting mix because the look is very early Kiss. When I say Kiss, I'm really talking about Kiss from 1973 to maybe 1981. I'm not talking about the guys that are around now. Only two original members left. It's a long story. But when I'm talking about Kiss, I'm talking about mid to late 70s. Sure, it's the look. It's very striking. But then we're also talking about their music was very meat and potatoes, very basic to my ears, and that it helped me separate. It helped me start to have an ear for arranging things, to know where the bass was, to know where the drums are, to know where the rhythm guitar is, and how the lead guitar fits into all of that. Just those four basic pieces was a great foundation. I also want to note that I also have the same reverence for the Beatles, but that's more about like the story around how that's a whole other thing. But yeah.
Yeah, when you talk about artists like, I'm not that familiar with Kiss music, but when you talk about artists like Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles, I very much can imagine seeing the colors, watching the play. If I think of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, you know, I do see a girl with tangerine eyes
Yeah.
and see like the swirls. It's very visual, the music.
Newspaper taxis.
Yeah, it's just like you could visuals are so it's so striking, it's so simple, but it's so you could sit and listen, you could listen to it, and you sort of picture yourself on a boat, you know, and it really, and the music is almost hypnotic, and
Yeah.
it kind of you know, takes you in it, and it's beautiful because it's like a journey.
Yeah.
And Hendrix too, like when I listen to like oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Like third moon from the sky? Is that the stars in the sky? I forget what he says. But just, or even like a manic depression, you know, that song, when those drums kick in, it's so powerful. It's like, it's almost like bursts. Maybe I am one of those people that see bursts of colors. But that level of artistry really does lend to that, right?
Yeah.
I think this time, you know, the crazy times that we're in, things like that where we can focus on things of beauty or things that really make us, like, you know, like the way your face lit up when you talked about your cousin's room, you know, those memories of those fun times, and those times of discovery, right? You always remember like the first time you heard the song, what was going on in your life. And so what do you think of, I mean, obviously there's some phenomenal artists still around today, right? But music is different, right? Everything seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the musician here, but a lot of auto-tune, a lot of, for me personally, I find that there's not a lot of original music. A lot of things are samples. And it's, you know, those original artists like the Marvin Gayes and the Kissers and the Beatles, you know, I don't know, like who would you say musicianship-wise today probably exudes true musicianship, like authentic, what you would call, I mean, art is debatable. I guess somebody, if they're auto-tuning, somebody might still consider that, you know, a form of art. No judgment, I'm not trying to judge anybody on what they said. We're old, older, we have a different, like we remember those 4 tracks, or when we actually did have to play live at certain places. What's your opinion on today's music overall?
Doing what I do for a living, by way of answering you, just to give you an example, day to day, we're given references to songs because that's what the general sound is going to be for that particular season of any given show, right? So they'll give me a link to a few links to artist videos, and I'll listen to them. And sometimes I'll like really listen, and some of it is deceptively simple. So when we say auto-tune and when we say, you know, trap, hip hop, number one, I understand completely now what people older than myself used to say is like, oh, this ain't, what are you guys listening to? I definitely have that. But then digging deeper into it, the same amount of thought and care is put into it. And, you know, when you have to actually pick it apart. So, you know, I definitely tip the hat to the new producers because they are doing something that is really not that easy. But it's also multi-use. It's also, you know, there's a certain mood that you want to convey with like trap. You know, it's very street. But then there's also the element of it, because it sounds repetitive. It's almost supposed to be like wallpaper, because when you look at wallpaper patterns, it's repetitive, right? You walk into a store. If we ever walk into a, you know, a clothing store again, for example, hopefully sooner than later. But like, you know, you hear music, but it's usually repetitive music because it's supposed to be background music as part of the experience of shopping. So these new genres do have their purpose. Not to say that it's useless junk. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that over time, I found, you know, to my ears, I found the inherent value in the music, you know. But you know, I'm still like the old man on the lawn, like, turn that down. That ain't music. You ever heard Teddy Pendergrass? You know, it's like I still have that brain, but it's like I'm trying. You know, I'm still open to some of the things that they're doing because I have to replicate it. So
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, that's interesting because that's part of your job. So you actually kind of have to get in it to.
Yeah, there at one point at first there was like a little bit of resistance when we started getting more orders for travel. Personally, in my head, in my heart, I was like, no, I'll do this. And then when I started getting into it, I was like, yo, this is not easy. It's not, because there's a certain experience that the youth have. There's a certain attitude that they have, which is different from the attitude that I had when I was listening to Houdini, UTFO, KRS-One. There was a different mindset, and it was easy to kind of approach that music because that was our time. So, you know, I
Yeah,
respect it.
yeah, I guess it's, we would have to put ourselves in the shoes of the
Yes,
millennials,
exactly.
and what their experience is.
Right.
And obviously, I love music and art, all art, because I feel that it is really an expression of being human, of this
Mm-hmm.
human experience. We talk about that too, where when we play, and yeah, this human experience is a trip, and it's like we have a different human experience from a different time and age, and what experience are the youth having now? Is different because I think um, like even like I wasn't really like I wanted to play guitar and you wanted to play guitar, but these instruments were like more around, and you always knew someone who had piano lessons every week, right? You
Mm-hmm.
always knew someone who went to dance class. You always knew people. I wasn't that person, but I remember being a little envious of those people. But now it's almost like it seems, and again, I don't want to be judgmental, but that kids are more attached to their cell phones or social media, or they're YouTubing, which I have tried to produce some videos for YouTube. And to your point, what you were saying about the chat, it's not easy. The way they do the intros and the captions. So it's really, I think, I agree. Like, it's easy for us to judge something because it sounds silly,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of do like the challenge of trying to reproduce certain things too, because
Of course.
often, like, I have a lot of respect for YouTubers.
Yep.
Because when I see the quality of the videos that they put out, and I try to put these videos together, I'm like, this is not easy, and some of them seem to really knock it out. So I guess talent is talent, right? It's just, again, expresses differently.
Yeah.
For the human and for the time.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is just, it's weird, right? Because as we talk about now after Corona, you and I have had the joy and the experience of going to concerts and going to see live artists. What do you foresee the future of, I want to say communal music where people actually go in person to experience?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see that going?
I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. I think just from what I've been hearing around, like going to the movies again, people are trying to open up movie theaters again this year. Drive-in theaters are hot again. So I think that's something you can't avoid, like the communal experience of seeing a band or seeing a movie, going to see a comedian. That's something that people want. It's always going to be here. And I think it's one of the good things that came out of this quarantine is that it brought to the forefront the fact that I can't. I got to be in a group of people. I got to be around like some people, you know. And I think that will always be around. I think maybe the next year or so, it's going to be, people are going to do what they have to do to curb whatever they have to, you know, to curb, social distance and all that stuff. That's fine. But I think within 5 years, post vaccine, if it ever comes, it's still going to be around. It's still going to be around, I think.
So the world is a really crazy place now.
No, it's not. Yes, it is. Okay.
It's cuckoo, cuckoo, to quote the Beatles. And there's a lot of stuff going on, between Corona and the whole, we've been having conversations about race and race relations amongst our own ethnicities. And I don't know, for me, the energy feels very heavy. And I think that we're all trying to process. And I don't know, I wonder, because this is not our first rodeo in this. So as a Black man, how has this experience been for you, the whole George Floyd thing? And how would you, if you could or would, and you might, how would you express that artistically?
The first part of that, there's anxiety. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, it brings up a lot of feelings that I've felt almost all my life in terms of where I am and a sense of belonging, where I fit in society. And I'm not talking about worth. I'm not talking about worth, but I'm talking about as an accepted member, because I have self-worth. I know what I'm capable of. I know, what my talents are, all of that. I was raised well, but I'm just saying in terms of like, there's always, you go into one room with other Black people or other people of color who are from different persuasions, some from Latin America, some from America, some from the Caribbean. So it's like, there's that sense, and then you enter a room of Europeans, and then there's another set of questions that, subconsciously run through your mind. But this period has kind of brought all of that to the surface. And I want to say that for the first time, I've really felt that at least everyone is feeling that same anxiety, that same level of uncertainty, that same level of just weariness. And I think that's the tipping point. So there's some comfort in knowing that the simultaneous feeling of it lead to that tipping point. So it's just been a big mix of emotions. And it's, it's a pimple that needed to be popped. But
yeah.
The scar is going to be there for a while. It's going to be there for a while. Like, these protests have definitely revealed a lot of pent-up feelings. But it's going to be a while before things really, really, really settle and people ask some really pointed and detailed questions around how we're going to get over this hurdle as people.
Have you had conversation with white people about this?
Not in depth, no. I have, I have neighbors who, over the last week or so, I've said hello to them. Hello, how are you? Nice day today. That kind of surface, the neighborly thing that you do, but it's palpable that there's other things underneath that. And it's like, well, I'm on my way to the store and I can't really talk to you about the rioting and the anger that's out there. and the protest that's happening 2 blocks away. I can't talk to you about that right now because we both got things going on, but it's palpable. At least I feel it. And there's been the communication from management where I work. I've had the check-ins from my white friends. Dude, you good? Can I do anything? And it felt, because I didn't necessarily want my friends in particular to do anything for me.
Right.
But if they have it in their hearts to really contribute, to really do the self-reflection, or to do whatever it is that will set their vision right around race, I'm all for it. But that's been the extent of my conversations with white people, at least over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
It's going to be really interesting as music lovers to see what kind of art comes out of all of this.
Oh wow! Get ready. Yeah.
Right.
The music,
you're talking about trap music, and you went back to EPMD and Houdini. Like, I was thinking of Curtis Blow. Now, is it Curtis Blow who did "Don't Push Me" because I Close to the Edge?
No, that was Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Like, you think about the music and the times, and you're like, ooh, this is very Grandmaster Flash-ish stuff going on.
Broken glass everywhere. People. Just don't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, me as a Prince fan, I think of "The Sky Was All Purple." There were people running everywhere.
Right.
Trying to run from my destruction. I didn't even care.
You didn't care.
And like in a Corona age where people are just like, F it, we're gonna protest, we're gonna gather in more than 10 people. Yeah, I think about that. Like his level, Prince is kind of like in a bubble, kind of, right? And you wonder, like, how astute did he have to be to still be aware of what was the temperature of what was going on in the world?
Yeah.
So for him to express that, because it didn't really affect him directly like that, right? He was a millionaire. He could have done whatever he wanted to do, basically. He could ignore it. He could, and I know he contributed to the cause, but artistically speaking, like when I think of that, that line, trying to run from my destruction, I didn't even care. Because it's like, you're running, but then you don't care because you're in COVID and you might have your mask on, you might not, you might keep your eye, so at one point you don't even care anymore. So it'll be really interesting to see, because it's almost like eerily quiet. I don't know if it's because I kind of turned off the news and I just kind of checked out because it's too overwhelming. And I don't really listen to the radio either, but the little bit that I have listened to the radio, I guess, people maybe are producing the music and we're not in a space where people are performing live like that. But it's going to be very interesting to see the type of art in general, music, art, spoken word, all that stuff that's going to come out of this. Usually, a lot of times, I think of Marvin Gaye too. Mama, mama, there's too many of us crying. And it's right. So it's mercy, mercy me. You think of these artists, and for me, it's almost like, wow, this is still prevalent. Like, they've been singing about this, Bob Marley sang about this, Can't Down Babylon. Like, all these artists have always addressed it and sang about it over the years, and it's almost like now I guess everything is so intensified because we were in quarantine, and I feel like there's going to be some kind of explosion. Once people,
artistically?
What was that?
You mean artistically?
Yeah. Probably like a Renaissance of sorts. People have been holed up for so long, and there kind of always is some kind of Renaissance after a plague.
Sure.
After something like that, right? And I'm excited, and you'll probably get lots of fun stuff to sample.
I mean, It's there's political upheaval. There's
Oh yeah, that too.
political strife. There's the further um, pushing of sexual liberation. There's philosophical liberation. There's so many forms of emancipation that are going on that it's all lumped into one big ball. That's a line from the Honeymooners.
Overexposing. Yeah, it's just like it's all
it's like a spontaneous combustion, but over time it's been these separate threads, but now they've all congealed into this one rope.
Wow, I never. Yeah, yeah, and it's going to be interesting because we're also in an election year on top of everything. It's like
we're
this is
history.
It's history. Yeah. So okay. So I mean, you love what you do?
I love what I do. It's a blessing to be able to do what I do and not have it feel like work, because that first part of my life was work. It was going in and looking at the clock, waiting on the break, and and then thinking about doing music at some point in the day or some point in the week. I can't imagine going back to that now. But it was, it was a foundation to my general work life. But I love what I do.
And it also gave you that contrast, right? So you're able to see
it. I knock on wood. I definitely am grateful. Definitely grateful for what I do now.
So last question would be, I guess the obvious. What advice would you give to the young artist, the right-brained child, that doesn't even want to take that venture into corporate America, that wants to do what they love to do right off the cuff?
Although that hasn't been my experience, I will say that do as much as you can. Okay, if you're still at your parents' house, stay dedicated to your passion. Stay dedicated to your passion. Once you leave your parents' house, if you are not currently making money from your passion, do not stop your passion, but also be responsible. So you want to get to the point that even before you make it, you're self-sufficient. There are a million ways to do your passion now and earn money from it, and not necessarily be signed to anybody, not necessarily have a contract, but it can lead to bigger things. But you can still make money doing what you love now. And working where I work, at the time that I joined, it wasn't as robust as it is now. So definitely, I mean, I can say don't give up, but I'm saying don't give up because there are a million ways to actually earn a living doing what you do. Stick with it, do the research, and there are people out there who are waiting to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for everything. I'm ever so grateful. I'm actually was one of the best things that came out of the Rona. Was getting to know an old friend. And
awesome.
Yeah, for those of you watching the video, like, check in with that, right? Who do you really know, and do you really know them? And showing other people the interest, right, that you have in their life, because, and in the time that we're in, right, to really express that we all matter, right? I care about what you do. I care about if you like what you do, if you love what you do.
Yeah.
And if we all care about each other like that, not to sound corny, but it makes the world a better place.
It does make it a better place.
Right? It makes it more fun and more interesting, and then there's a certain level of intimacy too that, and I think that's kind of what people miss too, is that intimacy that you have. Like, we have our old friends. Like, again, I think of how your face lights up when you think of your cousin. you know, that intimacy and that love between people, you know, and obviously we have that when we having to be fighting with each other.
Yeah.
But thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for sharing.
To do this, it was a great insight. It was a great, like, quick deep dive into my past. I had a lot of fun.
Question of you.
Yeah.
Into the question of you.
Yeah, exactly. The question. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, right?
To everyone. And
Happy birthday, Prince.
Yeah, happy birthday, Prince. And thank you. Thank you again.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.